Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. The name Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Barakatah. This is Sergeant Yabatazar for the Ambassadors of Christ. This is Soldier
Nehemiah. Shalom.
Shalom, family. Today is the fourth day, I believe, of Hanukkah. And we're just doing a Hanukkah lesson tonight, Feast of Dedication. Just a quick lesson and all of that on why we keep the Feast of Dedication and what's the purpose of it and its significance going forth as far as our faith, our walk, and our culture. So pretty much the Feast of Dedication is called Hanukkah in the Hebrew language. It is written in the book of John, chapter 10. Can you grab that for me? John chapter 10, verse 22 and 23.
Khan.
Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
This is the book of John.
Slide over a little bit because you're coming off the camera. Okay. Go ahead.
This is the book of John, chapter 10. I got it.
Go ahead.
Verse 22.
Yep, through 23. Come.
And it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication, and it was written. It was winter, Salakia. And Yahweh Shai walked in the temple in Solomon's porch.
Khan, so as we see in John 10, 22 through 23, is that it was the Feast of Dedication. It was in the wintertime. And currently right now, we're in the wintertime, and we're keeping it in season, right? And it says Feast of Dedication, and it was winter, and Yahweh Shai walked into Solomon's porch. So all questions regarding this feast must begin with the prophecy in Daniel chapter 8 regarding the beginning of the Greek Empire, right? Talking about Alexander the Great, Antiochus Epiphanes, before the Roman Empire. And we're going to try to bring out, as much information as we can in a short period of time. So we're just here to try to edify the body and the nation on why Hanukkah, or the Feast of Dedication, is something that we keep. Go ahead. Daniel 8 and 8.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 8.
Give me a second. Let me jump there with you. Go ahead.
Therefore, he goat waxed very great.
The he goat waxed very great. Go ahead.
And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up four notable ones. Toward the four winds of heaven.
Come. So pretty much that great horn waxed very great, which was Alexander when he conquered the earth. You know what I'm saying? He conquered the four corners of the earth, right? And he was very strong. And when Alexander died, I believe he died at the age of, I think he reigned, 10 years? Let me get that in First Maccabees real quick. Let me just lock it. Let me get myself correct. Right, so let me see. Yes, Alexander Salakia, I was going to say 10 years, I stand corrected. According to First Maccabees, he reigned 12 years. So when he fell, there were four notable ones, meaning his four generals, those that grew up with him, that rose themselves up as kings during that time. And then the he-goat that waxed great was Alexander the Great, and when he was strong, was when all the dark-skinned nations were subdued under him, which is a thing that you're not understanding. During the Greek Empire, there's the children of Japheth. They were dark-skinned people, just like the children of Ham, just like Noah's other three sons, Japheth, Shem, and Ham. And Ham being the youngest son, the father of the so-called Africans, right? And it says, all the dark-skinned nations were subdued under him, but then he died. And prior to his death, he divided his empire among four of his most notable generals toward the four kingdoms of the realm, which is the four winds. The four generals, the first, let me see, 1 second, technical difficulties. All right, the first general was General Cassander, and he was given Macedonia. The second was Lysimachus, was given Thrace in Asia Minor. General Secundus was given Syria, and General Ptolemy was given Egypt. So go ahead and read Daniel 8 and 9. Start up at Daniel 8 and 8 and drop down to verse 9. Go ahead.
Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven.
Okay.
And out of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven.
All right, Shalak, stop right there. And it says, out of General Secundus came forth his son Antiochus, who had become exceeding great, and extended his rule over the south, which is Egypt. Let's grab the book of Daniel, chapter 11, verse 5. And we'll come back to Daniel real quick, but let's go to Daniel 11 and 5. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 11, verse 5.
Uh-huh.
And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above them, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion.
Right, and this is going back to talking about General Seculaus, which who brought forth for his seed line brought out Antiochus. Antiochus was the king of the south, which ruled Egypt, and at one point in time he did have some type of rulership over what's the word I'm looking for? He had Egypt and also Syria, Salakia. Give me on 1 Maccabees 1 and 16. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 16.
This is the book of first.
Actually start at the top so we can just establish the history of Alexander the Great, which a lot of people don't know that he's a biblical character, meaning this guy actually existed in biblical times. He played a part into our history as being Israelites in the captivity of the entire world, no different than what the Romans did, no different than what the Americans did. They were all the same people, the Edomites. Read 1 Maccabees 1 and 1.
This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes.
Okay.
That he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
Meaning that when he used that word stead, meaning the first of his kind, the first of his nation, the first of his lineage. Here's the first white man that actually sat as king of the world or the planet Earth, but he's also the first one who reigned over Greece. Read verse 2.
And made many wars, and won many strongholds.
Okay.
And slew the kings of the earth.
Okay.
And went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
Right. So when Alexander conquered the four winds of the earth, right, he was very prideful and his heart lifted up. This is the first time they ever stepped into dominance. That nation of people. Go ahead. Verse 4.
And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries.
Meaning that these were kings that had submitted themselves and their kingdoms to him, who became tributaries, meaning that they brought him gifts. They were willing to pay him a portion of whatever their kingdom was, or a tax. Sometimes those tributes would be women and children, whether it's in for sexual matters or sodomite reasons. But these were some of the things that they paid as tributaries to Alexander the Great, who was the king of the earth, who was also a sodomite himself. Read.
Verse 5. And after these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died.
And then Alexander reigned 12 years as king of the earth and he died. Read.
And his servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves.
Meaning that they all crowned themselves kings of those four winds of the earth that we read about in the book of Daniel, the prophecy. Read.
So did their sons after them, many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth.
It says many evils were multiplied in the earth. I just read to you earlier that they went around conquering the dark-skinned people of the earth, the melanated people. Okay? So drop down to 1 Maccabees 1 and 16. You know what? Start at verse 1 and 16. Go ahead.
This book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 16. Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have dominion of two realms.
Right, so this is Antiochus Epiphanes. he was not just satisfied with ruling over what was parted to him as far as Egypt in that portion of the eastern hemisphere of the earth, but he also wanted Israel. Okay, so let's jump over to and it says according to 1 Maccabees 1:16, and toward the east, which is at Eliamas in Armenia, right? So let's jump back up to 1 Maccabees 1:3. You know what, Salakia? Jump over to drop down to verse 31. Verse 31. Salakia, I don't want to read that one. Let me see. Start at 1 Maccabees 1:30. 30 and 31.
Book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 30. And spake peaceable words unto them.
This is meaning that this is Antiochus and his men, his messengers that he sent over to us to speak with us while we were in our lands. And they spoke peaceable words, right? The scripture says, never trust thine enemy, right? Because when you look in the wiping glass, right, and don't just mix in the scripture, when you look in the wiping glass, it is rust. Pretty much he's rusting over and over. His rust does not rusteth away. Meaning that he's going to continue to wax worse and worse. Read. Verse 30 again.
And spake peaceable words unto them. But all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel.
Right. So that other realm that he wanted to control was Israel. And when he came into that land, he destroyed and smote very many of our people. He slaughtered them, right? So, let's jump over to 1 Maccabees chapter 6, 1 through 4.
It's the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 6,
Verse 1.
verse 1. About that time King Antiochus traveling through high countries, heard say that Elymius in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver and gold.
Right, we just read about Elymius. It's a country in Persia that was known for its great riches of silver and gold. Go ahead.
And that there was in it a very rich temple, wherein were coverings of gold and breastplates and shields, which Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian king, who reigned first among the Grecians, had left there.
Right. Go ahead and read through 4. Verse 3.
That was 3.
Yeah.
Wherefore he came and sought to take the city and spoil it, but he was not able, because of the city having had warning thereof.
Verse 4.
Rose up against him in battle. So he fled and departed thence with a great heaviness, and returned to Babylon.
So this was talking about, again, those 4 horns who took over the earth after Alexander died, right? So pretty much it's talking about, he tried to take over Egypt, and now he also wanted Persia. He also wanted Israel, right? And if you remember at the time, if you remember the 300 Spartans, at that time you had Xerxes and Darius, the king of the Persians, that were one of the ruling powers, right? The Persians also took us into captivity at one point in time, right? So let's jump back over to Daniel 8 and 10. Daniel chapter 8, verse 10. Because those were just the precepts up for Daniel chapter 8, verse 8 through 9. So those are the precepts that you use right there for those. Go ahead. Daniel chapter 8, verse 10.
And it waxed great even to the hosts of heaven.
Right, it's talking about those four, the little horn which waxed great towards the south and towards the east and towards the pleasant land. The 4 generals, read.
And it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground, and stomped upon them.
Meaning that when they're talking about the stars and all, it's talking about nations and empires and kings. He stomped them to the ground, right? So it says the host of heaven are the Israelites. Those are the nations, but also the host of the heavens are also the Israelites, according to Exodus 12 and 41. So let's back that up with Exodus 12 and 41. Because when you're talking about conquering the entire earth, you got all those different nations that are upon the earth. So those nations stand up as stars, but the specific ones, the host of heaven, those are not the other nations. The host of heavens are the Israelites, according to Exodus chapter 12, verse 41. Exodus 12 and 41. Read that real quick, King.
It's the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 41. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the same day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
All of the who?
All of the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
Right, so the hosts of heaven are the Israelites, as in Exodus 12 and 41. Antiochus cast many Israelites, small and great, to the ground in war, and stamped upon them by indoctrinating them with his philosophies. So read Daniel's 8 and 11, King. So we're back in the book of Daniel, chapter 8.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down.
Right, meaning that he took away the daily sacrifice. If you know anything about the sacrifice, the priest went into the temple daily for the atonement of sins. Meaning that it was a holy place. You had the holies of holies, where only the high priests were able to go into the certain parts of the temples. But then you had the place where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, and other different things that I'll bring out a little later on before we summarize it up. So read verse 11 again.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down.
Grab me first Maccabees chapter 1, 44 through 47. So King Antiochus magnified himself even unto the Most High, and ended the daily sacrifice in the place of the Most High sanctuary, the temple, which was defiled, which was Solomon's temple. Let me know when you're ready.
God.
Go ahead.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 41.
Chapter 1, verse 44.
44.
44 through 47.
Okay. God. For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
See, if you know anything about history, it's the same thing over here in America. The Greeks wanted everybody to forget who they were, whatever their ethnicity was, whatever their culture was, whatever God they prayed to, whatever their faith system or whatever law system or moral code they lived by. He wanted all the people of his empire and kingdom to all live as one people, as Greeks. Right? Go ahead.
And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice, and drunk offerings in the temple, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
Now, we know anything about the Most High. He says, keep my Sabbath as a remembrance. The Sabbath is a holy day. It's a day of gathering. It's a holy convocation. It's a day of praise and worship to the Most High. It's a day of dedication to the Most High, and spiritually in the same way that they would do for Solomon's temple. Okay, so go ahead and continue reading down to 47.
And pollute the sanctuaries and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh.
Sacrifice what?
Swine's flesh. And unclean beasts.
So one of the things we know about in the commandments is that we don't eat swine. It's an abominable food. The pig itself is not clean, but eating it or touching its dead carcass is an abomination, because the pig, just like all the Most High's creations, has a purpose on this earth, right? It's the garbage disposal of the earth, right? So they put swine's flesh on the altar, which is something that made the altar unclean, meaning that we can no longer worship nor sacrifice within the temple because it had been defiled, right? So jump over back to Daniel's 8 and 12.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 12.
Uh-huh.
And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression.
Mm-hmm.
And it cast down the truth to the it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered.
Khan. The host that was given to Antiochus were disobedient Israelites who rebelled against the Most High's laws of sacrifice for mercy by reason of their desire to sin, and cast down the truth, the Most High's commandments. Give me Psalms 119 and 151. So pretty much they walked away from the covenant, from the 613 laws that were given unto them in Mount Sinai by Moses, by the 70 elders of Israel that we can read back in the book of Exodus and Numbers and back in the first 5 books of the Torah, right? So we want to go to Psalms 119.
Con.
And give me a second, let me jump there with you. And 151.
Con. This is the book of Psalms, chapter.
You know what? Do me a favor. Start up at Psalms 119 and 150.
Okay, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse
150.
150.
Con. Read.
They draw nigh that follow after
You
mischief.
hear that? They say they draw near that follow after mischief. Okay, go ahead.
They are far from thy law.
Con. They're far from the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments. It's talking about the heathens and the rebellious Israelites that we're going to read about. Read.
Thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are truth.
All the commandments are what?
Are truth.
Right, so we see that they cast down the truth to the ground and they practiced and prospered, meaning the ways of the Greeks and this king was prospering amongst the people, right? So anyway, let's go back to Daniel 8 and 13. Chapter 8, verse 13.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 13.
Uh-huh.
Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot?
Right, so this is another saint asking Daniel, what is this? When is this vision going to end? What does this vision mean? You know what I'm saying? Where to the transgression of the desolation. The transgression was falling away from this law, statutes, and commandments, forming the covenant with the other heathens, right? And then to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden afoot. So he was wondering even more further, how long would this last? So the transgression of desolation is explained in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 37 through 38. So let's get that real quick.
God.
Give me 1 second to jump there with you because I might have you start up a little higher. 1 Maccabees. Hold on, there was something where we were earlier. I wanted to read that. Where was it? We're going to jump up a little higher. Where was it? 1 Maccabees. Okay, start at 1 Maccabees 1 and 11 real quick. And then we're going to jump back down.
It's the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11.
Uh-huh.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen.
It says, let us go make a covenant with the heathen, right? Go ahead.
That are round about us.
Mm-hmm.
For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
Right. These are wicked men that were willing to join up to the nation, to the Greeks, right? Read.
So this device pleased them well.
Mm-hmm.
Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
Right. So the scripture says, follow not after the ways of the world, or follow not the ways of the heathen, right? I believe it's in Deuteronomy 7, and I'll read that real quick. Just hold where you at. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Let me see. This is Deuteronomy chapter 7. And where do I want to go? All right, Deuteronomy 7:1, verse 3. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them, thy daughter. Hold on. Salaki, Deuteronomy 7:2. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. So that's the commandment that Moses gave them, that we were not to make a covenant with the heathens. But we just saw that in First Maccabees that they did, right? So go back to where you were, chapter and verse. First Maccabees.
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11.
Go ahead.
In those days went there out of Israel.
Now, Salaki, you already read that. Read verse 13 and stop at verse 15. Then drop down to 37.
Okay.
Verse 14.
Okay. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen.
Now, if you know, that facility or that exercise place was like the Roman temples, the gladiator temples. These were the places of exercise that they built. The same thing that we see with our NFL coliseums, our baseball stadiums, our NBA stadiums, and all of that. It's the same thing, which all comes from ancient Greece. Go ahead. Verse 15.
And made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves with the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
Drop down to verse 37, King. So now we're going to get back to the desolation, the transgression of the desolation, which is explained in 1 Maccabees 1 and 37. Go ahead.
This is 1 Maccabees,
Speak a little louder,
chapter 1, verse 37.
Uh-huh.
Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it. Insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers.
Meaning that during this persecution and murdering and plundering of our people, we fled out of the lands. And guess who started filling up the lands? The Gentiles, the heathens. Read.
And became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her.
Right, meaning her own children left her. So it's pretty much like a mother weeping for her own children, which was the land of Jerusalem, which according to the book of Galatians is the mother of us all, right? So let's jump over back to Daniel 8 and 14. Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. Daniel 8, chapter 14.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
Right, so Daniel said within unto 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. So that's 2,300 days was the historic account of the abomination of desolation, which first occurred approximately from 171 BC to 165 BC. And then shall the sanctuary be clean, meaning restored unto the Most High. Hence came the Feast of Dedication. So the prophecy continues in the book of Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. Whenever you're ready, Daniel 11, 31, King.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 11, verse 31.
Okay.
And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
Right. And check this out. It says, and the power shall stand on Antiochus' part, and the Greeks shall pollute the Most High sanctuary, and shall end the Most High's law of sacrifice for sin, and they shall place in sanctuary idols and sacrifice pen, and make all that love and fear the Most High flee. Verse 32.
And such as though wickedly against the covenant,
Go ahead.
and such as though wickedly against the covenant, shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits.
Right. So it's speaking, it said the people that do know the Most High shall be strong and do exploits. Begin with the Levite Mattathias and those that gathered unto him. Let's read first Maccabees chapter 2, verse 19 through 30. Give me 1 second. Let me send this message off. Go ahead, King.
It's the book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 19. Then Matthias answered and spake with a loud voice. Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away everyone from the religion of their fathers and give consent to his commandments.
Right, so this is Mattathias saying that, and he spake with a loud voice, that all the nations are obeying the king. You know what I'm saying? Falling away from their own religion or their belief systems or customs or morals, and have given consent to the commandments, even walking away from the stuff that their forefathers taught. But let's see what Mattathias said. Go ahead, verse 20.
Yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers.
Right, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments and the faith, right? They're going to walk in the covenant of the Most High. They're going to stand bold as lions. Read.
God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken unto the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left.
Right. He said, we will not hearken or do as the king's word, nor follow after his religion. We won't be tossed to and fro. We won't be shaken to the right, from the right hand or the left hand, being tossed to and fro, meaning they're going to stick to their foundation, right? Go ahead.
Verse 23. Now, when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Modin, according to the king's commandments. Which thing, when Matthias saw, he was inflamed with the zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment, wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
Khan, did you see that? So one of the wicked Israelites was willing to come sacrifice on the altar. And Mattathias, he was inflamed with the zeal, with the spirit of the Most High of our forefathers. And he went up to that altar and he couldn't hold himself back. He slew that wicked Israelite for doing what? For doing abominable works and forgetting the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. Verse 25, go ahead.
Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down.
Right, so even the other men that the king commissioned to do that, they got bold enough to try to do it, and Mattathias killed them all. And then to keep them from profaning the altar, he snatched it down. He tore it down to the ground. Read.
Thus dealt he zealously for the law of God, for the law of the Most High, Salakia, like as Phinehas did unto Zomri, the son of Solomon.
Read.
And Matthias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me.
So you got to understand, son, what Mattathias did was a raw power move. It was rebellion. He kicked off the revolt. Meaning that no matter how many men that they sent up in there, he was not going to submit himself, nor his children, nor his son, nor his family, nor his brethren to the king's will. Right? So he says, whoever is zealous of the law and is going to keep the covenant, follow me. Read.
So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down unto the wilderness to dwell there.
Go ahead.
Both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them.
Meaning that they were suffering a lot. The afflictions increased upon them real heavy. So let's deal with this. Drop down to verse 42. 41. Hold on, Salaki. Give me 42 through 47.
This is the book of Maccabees, verse 42.
First Maccabees 2 and 42.
Kind. This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 42.
Mm-hmm.
Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law.
Uh-huh.
Also all they that fled for persecution
Mm-hmm.
joined themselves unto them, and were a state unto them.
Okay.
So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger,
Mm-hmm.
and wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for succor.
So it says that all the other men that were going to stand zealous for the law, the Assyrians, and they were mighty men of Israel, men of valor, men of truth, men of dedication, right? They were devoted to the law, and they warred. They smote all the wicked men of Israel and all the heathens that were around them, right? And they continued on and fought valiantly, right? Go ahead.
Then Matthias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars.
Mm-hmm.
And what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, they also circumcised valiantly.
Okay, read.
They pursued also after proud men, and the work prospered in their land.
In their hands. So meaning that the Most High
In their
was
hands,
with them. And in these battles and these skirmishes, the Most High was with them and they were winning. Even though they were still facing sore afflictions, meaning the rest of the nation, this band of Israelites, they stood together zealously for the law, right? So let's jump over to Daniel. Let me see. Yeah, Daniel chapter 11, verse 33 through 34. Daniel, whenever you're ready. Daniel 11, 33.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 11, verse 33.
Salakia. Their exploits they did was smote sinful men, pull down the pagan altars, circumcise all the children they found to be uncircumcised, and recover the book of the law out of the hand of the Greeks, which they had also stolen. So that's a very important part because they also had our records. And if you know anything about the heathens, especially the white man, they always try to destroy other nations' records and write themselves in their history. So it's very important that our people recover our records, right? So go ahead with Daniel 11:33.
Right. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days. Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries.
Meaning that there was always going to be a sect of people that was always going to seek after the heathens. So a lot of people don't understand that during the fall of the Greek Empire that the Roman Empire was just getting started. It had already existed and there were already skirmishes between the so-called Greeks and the Romans for control of the earth, right? So let's jump back over to, let me see. All right, so when Mattathias died, Israel was given a little help, and Mattathias' son named Judas, who was called Maccabees, meaning the hammer. So Maccabees meaning the hammer. The Most High used Judas to cleanse the sanctuary as prophesied in the book of Daniel chapter 8 and 14. Go ahead and read Daniel's, read verse 35 and 36 where you at, King.
God. And some of them understanding shall fall to try them and to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed.
Right, so meaning that the end of this empire and the end of Esau's rulership is going to be to an appointed time. You know, if you understand anything in the scriptures, it says Esau is the end of the world. And Jacob is the beginning of the world that follows up. That's a future prophecy which goes back into what Daniel was talking about, right? Go ahead and read. Let's see. Judas Maccabees finally fell in battle, as did each of his brothers during that time. Go ahead and read 36. Did you read 36 already?
No.
Okay, read 11 and 36.
And the king shall dote according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against God of gods,
Meaning
the
that
gods of gods.
meaning the Most High is called the Most High God. You know what I'm saying? All these other nations got gods. Some people consider angels and things like that, minor gods or things of that nature. That's a whole nother discussion. But when we're talking about the pantheon, he's the God, the Most High. Not Horus, not Zeus, not Jupiter, not Poseidon or any of the Titans. You know what I'm saying? Or the Marvel comic superheroes or any of them guys. That's not them. All right, go ahead. Read 36 again.
And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done.
Right, kind. So that's the future prophecy, right? So the king Antiochus shall do according to his own will and exalt himself and magnify himself above every power or god. Hence he took the name Epiphanes, meaning God manifests on earth. So Antiochus Epiphanes named himself the God of the earth realm, right? When you pay attention to some of our religious people out here, the Pope, he says where? In the seat of God on the earth, right? He says he has the power to do all things on the earth, right? In the name of the Most High in Christ, right? But that's a lie. So now let's read a historic account in 1 Maccabees chapter 4. Give me 1 Maccabees 4 and 1.
It's the book of Maccabees chapter 4 verse 1. Then took Gorgias 5,000 footmen, and 1,000 of the best horsemen, and removed out of the camp by night.
Okay.
To the end he might rush in upon the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides. Now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army which was at Emmaus. While as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp. In the mean season came Gorgias by night into the camp of Judas.
Right, this is a group of the Georgians or the Georgias, as they say right here. They were getting ready to go into battle. They came against the camp of Israel, the tribe of Judas, right? Go ahead.
And when he found no man there, he sought them in the mountains. For said he, these fellows flee from us.
Right, they became very, you see how he got prideful?
These fellows.
He thought we was cowards. He thought we fled from him and all that, and that we were fearful. Read.
Verse 6. But as soon as it was day, Judas shewed himself in the plain with 3,000 men, who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds. And they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed round about with horsemen. And these were expert of war.
Right, meaning that these particular Greeks were the men of men, the best soldiers, you know what I'm saying? These were the experts of war. Go ahead.
Then said Judas to the men that were with him,
Okay.
Fear ye not their multitude, neither be ye afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea, when Pharaoh pursued them with an army.
Right, coming out of the Exodus. Read.
Verse 10. Now therefore let us cry unto heaven, peradventure will the Lord have mercy upon us,
Okay.
and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy this host before our face this day.
So they're telling them to not be fearful, to stand tall, be dedicated. Remember what the Most High of the host of heaven has done for us in the past. Read.
11. So that all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth and saveth Israel.
Right. The Holy One of Israel, the Most High. Read.
Then the strangers lift up their eyes and saw coming over against them.
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore they went out of the camp to battle, but they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets.
Right. They blew the shofars. Go ahead.
So they joined battle, and the heathen, being discomfited, fled into the plain.
Meaning that the way that we came and the Spirit of the Most High and that zeal was upon us, they got confounded. They got discomfited. They were no longer comfortable or courageous, and they started fleeing. Go ahead.
Howbeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword.
Uh-huh.
For they pursued them unto Gazera,
Uh-huh.
and unto the plains of Idumea,
Idumea.
and Azotus, and Imnea,
Con.
so that there were slain of them upon the 3,000 men.
So the brothers slayed 3,000 of those men who came against the camp, right?
This done, Judas returned again with his host, pursuing them,
Okay.
and said to the people, Be not greedy of the spoils, inasmuch as there is a battle before us.
Meaning that even though we won this battle and we take some of these spoils, don't forget we're still in the midst of a war. The battle is not over. This is one of many. Go ahead.
And Georgius and his host are here by us in the mountain. But stand ye now against your enemies and overcome them, and after this you may boldly take the spoils.
Uh-huh.
As Judas was yet speaking these words, there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountain, who when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to flight and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done.
Uh-huh.
When therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seeing also a host of Judas in the plain ready to fight.
Right, So they were looking upon the mountaintops and in these other areas, they're spies. And they were seeing that Judas and the Israelites were ready to fight. They were ready for the fight, to come to them or take the fight to them. Read.
They fled every one to the land of strangers. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they got much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches.
Uh-huh.
After this they went home.
They went where?
Home.
Con.
And sung a song of thanksgiving and praised the Lord in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endure forever.
Con. Whose mercy endure forever?
His mercy.
Con. Go ahead.
Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day.
Con. So if anybody ever told you that the Most High totally forgot about his children, the Most High forbid. Read.
Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had happened, whom when he heard thereof was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he would were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come unto pass.
Right, go ahead.
The next year, therefore, following Lysias, gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot,
60,000.
and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them.
Okay.
So they came unto Idumea.
Idumea is the Edomites. Go ahead. Greek word for Esau. Edomites. Go ahead.
And pitched their tents at Bethsura. And Judas met with them 10,000 men.
So they came with 60,000 men. We came with a sixth of the amount of men. They came with 60. We came with 10. 10,000, verse 60,000. Go ahead.
And when he saw that mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the violence of the army man, of the mighty man by the hand of the servant David, and gavest the host of strangers into the hand of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer.
Okay.
Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen.
You see that they prayed before they went up against this great army. They prayed to the Holy One of Israel. We can't do nothing without the Most High, whether it's in our daily walk at home, in our personal lives, our marriages, on our jobs, wherever. We can't do nothing without the Most High. And when we try to go off on our own and straying away from that, that's when all those afflictions, all those attacks, and lo and behold, I know about them. All of those things that are unpleasurable that come upon us, right? Because we're leaning onto our own understanding versus the things that the Most High established for us through our forefathers. Read verse 32.
Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction.
Let them shake in their boots. Read.
Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving.
Read.
So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were there slain.
Go ahead. Verse 35.
Were they slain. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judas soldiers.
Now the effeminate side of the Judas soldiers.
No, the manliness.
The manliness. God, the manliness of Judas soldiers. Go ahead.
And how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went to Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again unto Judah.
Man, these people just ain't learned. They just keep coming and coming every time we whip they behind. They reload up. They gather more other heathen nations onto them, and that shows you how much the other nations hated us. You know, it talked about how they were confederate against us, all the nations, all of them, and we're seeing it right here. All they kept doing, all the other nations kept joining on to them to come to battle against us. Go ahead.
Then he said, Judas and his brethren, behold, our armies, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sacrifice, the sanctuary.
Right, so then verse 36, First Maccabees 4:36. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So that's where we get into where we were coming to these things. And I'll read some, give you a break. And it says in 37, upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and the shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes, and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried towards heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So even then, when they returned back into the land, the strangers were still defiling our temple. So they had to fight to get them up out of there. Verse 42. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when as they consulted, what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane. They thought it was best to pull it down, lest it shall be a reproach for them, because the heathen had defiled it, wherefore they pulled it down, and laid upon the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former. So if you didn't know anything about that, it talks about the 12 pillars, right? The 12 pillars. The 12 pillars, the 12 stones. When we look at our ephod, the 12 stones. You know what I'm saying? The 12 gates in the book of Revelations. Those are the pillars, Salakia. Those were the stones that they were talking about, those holy, lively stones, Salakia. Almost had some technical difficulties over here, foot trapped. That's crazy. Give me a second. There you go. Okay. All right, that's better. And verse 1 Maccabees 1 and 47. Then they took the whole stones according to the law and built an altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple and hallowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels. And into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offerings and the incense and the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and upon the lamps thereupon the candlesticks they lighted, that they might give light in the temple, which is the menorah that you see over there, the 7 candles. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table and spread out the veils and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu, in the 140th and 8th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and they offered the sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they made. Verse 54. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that it was dedicated with songs and with citherns and harps and cymbals. Verse 55. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping, praising the Most High of heaven, who had given them good success. Verse 55. So they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. That is the feast of dedication, as we're reading right here, 1 Maccabees 4:56. So they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and would offer burnt offerings with gladness, and the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. So we started the feast of dedication on Wednesday the 9th, and it ends the evening of the 17th. Those are the 8 days. 8 days, even and even, according to the commandments. And they decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for the reproach of the heathen were put away. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their year from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month of Caslu, with myrrh and gladness. So in America, December is the month of Caslu. The new year for us doesn't start until April. Towards the end of March, towards the beginning of April, when you see the new plants, you see life regenerate itself. Right now, this is the dead season. This is not the new year, because nothing grows in the dead of the winter. Everything dies. The grass dies. The birds have hibernated to warmer climates. The waters are frozen, and things of that nature. So it says, moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month of Caslu, with myrrh and gladness. And at that time also they builded up the Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they had done before. So they built up strong high walls to where, the centurions and them guys, they can be up there watching for the enemies coming and things of that nature. And they also set that up as a trap. Verse 61. And they set there a garrison and kept it and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea. Now, just real quick, just a note. It says there's no mention of Israel having no oil to light the 7-branch menorah, not 9-branch. See, the Jewish people, you seen them 9-branch menorahs. That's a heathen custom. That ain't got nothing to do with us, right? The 9-branch is a man-made tradition. Neither is it mentioned that said oil lasted for 8 days, right? Salakia. I got it. Okay. The reason Israel celebrates this holiday for 8 days is recorded in Second Maccabees chapter 1 and 18. And I'll read that real quick. 2 Maccabees 1 and 18. I'm going to start up at 1 Maccabees 2 and 2 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 17. Blessed be our God in all things, who has delivered up the ungodly. Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month of Caslu, we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that ye also might keep it, as the Feast of Tabernacles and of the fire, which was given us when Nehemiah offered sacrifice after that he had builded the temple and the altar. Verse 19, for when our fathers were led into Persia, the priests that were then devout took the fire of the altar privily and hid it in a hollow place of the pit without water, where they kept it sure, so that the place was unknown to all men. So now we have a better understanding why the Apostle John mentions the Feast of Dedication. As it occurred in winter, and Christ entered the temple at Solomon's porch. So let's go back to John chapter 10, chapter 22. John chapter 10, verse 22 through 23. And then we're going to close out. Christ kept the Feast of Dedication. We're supposed to walk after Christ. He's our living example of righteousness and holiness, right? Christ said, follow after me. So this is why we keep the law, statutes, and commandments, because these are the things that the Holy One of Israel gave to our forefathers when he delivered us out of the hand of Pharaoh in Egypt that we read about when we went through the Red Sea. This is not a religion. This is our heritage. And I'm going to get that real quick. Give me a second. Let me get that real quick. Give me the book of Sirach. Give me Sirach 24 and 23.
24.
Sirach 24 and 23. And then we're going to go to Deuteronomy.
Okay.
Hold on. You know what? Start. Yep. Go ahead with Sirach 24. Go ahead with what you got.
It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 24, verse 23.
Right.
All these things are the book of the covenant of the Most High God. Even the law which Moses commanded for a heritage unto the congregations of Jacob.
Right, I'm going to read it again. It says, all these things are the book of the covenant of the Most High God, even the law which Moses commanded for an heritage unto the congregations of Jacob. Right? So let me precept that up with the book of Sirach 17 and 11. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 17, verse 11. Salakia, I'm going to start up at Sirach 17 and 9. He gave them to glory in his marvelous acts forever, that they might declare his works with understanding. And the elect shall praise his holy name. Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an heritage. This book, these commandments, these covenants, this is our heritage. This is not a religion. All the other religions that you heard about, they stole our heritage. that book was not written by nobody. This book was written by Jacob, by Israel, by his sons, our forefathers. Nobody else wrote this book. No white man, no Chinese man. These were black men. These were so-called Negroes who wrote this book for their children, for their current generation, for the future generations. So it says in Sirach 17:9, he gave them to glory in his marvelous acts forever, that they might declare his understanding, his works with understanding, and the elect shall praise his holy name. Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an heritage. He made an everlasting covenant with them and showed them his judgments. So now I'm going to jump over to one more scripture, Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 33 and 4. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33. Hold on, I'm going to start. Deuteronomy 33 and 1. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of the Most High, blessed the children of Israel before his death. Verse 3. Yea, he loved, let me see. Come on, Salakia. Verse 2. And he said, the Most High came from Sinai and rose up from Seir unto them. He shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000 of saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for them. Yea, he loved the people. All his saints are in thy hand. And they sat down at thy feet. Every one shall receive of thy words. And Moses commanded unto us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. So the scripture says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, we just gave you 3 witnesses. And on that, we say Shabbat Shalom, happy feast of dedication. The Most High in Christ bless you. From the ambassadors of Christ, the men in black, Alpha Omega clan, Shalom, Yahweh Shem, Yahushai, Barakathon.
Yahweh Shem, Yahushai, Barakathon. Kala, Yahweh Shem, Yahushai. Hallelujah. One, Yeshua. One.
It's Camo.
Khan. Check it. Yeah. Awkward. Rhymes that are flown to you baptized. Pick up the cross, care of my life. I ain't even ducking in a gunfight. Babylon's falling, that's right. Fire chariot, flame in the eyes. Hanky black man in a black sky, chasing the bad guys, saving the chastised. Give me how a shot. Yup, that's Christ. This place polluted and looted. Yes, I rebuke it, reprove it, remove it. Excuses are useless. This movement is moving. These angels are shooting, but no, not a Cupid. I am an Israelite. I am not Jewish. Kingdom we build it, Cupid by Cupid. Song like a psalm. This is a prayer, not just some music. We need retribution. How I get my life for our nation. How will expose all the fake ones. How will blaze a fire on Satan. Cause how it twins from day one. More like a lion, I will not run. Go get your gun, I'm about that action. Get my power and orders from the highest one, Father and Son. Khan. Yeah.
Alright. Look, I woke up in the spot straight dolly. Everything I do stay low key. Niggas shooting niggas like the police, but they scared to read a book, nigga OGs. I'm not a pawn, I'm a god. Move without checkerboards, not a mason. Keeping it fake while they keeping it dumb. Just came back and tell how they check on my son. Whoa, ZZ's almost to the floor. SPLC want me Rex 84. MK that soldier, let's settle the score. I'm repping my nation till I'm in the floor. Whoa, I was one sick and I got cured. Track with my other one awkward. These niggas in the truth real awkward. Trying to get a name instead of prosper. This a family, not a group. Niggas flee when rebuke. This a walk, far from a religion. The white man, the real son of perdition. Cooking verses like I'm up in the kitchen. You ain't the sheep, so you can't see the vision. Pop an itch, that's gonna get you a visit. And when it does, don't speak like you was kidding. Con.